Public Safety and Transportation Committee's meeting. Today is June 7th. Like I said before, it's 6:35. We're going to start today's meeting. We have a short and sweet agenda today. I'd like to adopt the June agenda and May's minutes according to our current, our new guideline. Is that, Carly, is that what do we call it? Guideline for the meeting?
Yeah, typically you start with the ground rules and then you move to adopt the agenda and minutes.
Could you give us the ground rules tonight, Carly?
Sure. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff, me. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about the agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or a comment about the subject on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized.
All right, those are the rules. We usually don't have a problem in this committee. We should be working fine. In case we do, we have NYPD present, so you guys already know.
I'll call the roll call now, and then you can do the adoption of the agenda and make committee minutes by asking folks to raise their hand if they object, and if they don't, then the minutes and the agenda are adopted. So I'm going to start with the roll call. Altamirano.
Present.
Brown.
She's excused.
Right. Collier.
Here.
Diaz.
Present.
Febrero. Judith. I see her on here.
Did you hear me?
Here.
There
Now
you
we hear you, Judith. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Garcia. Mack. Morris. Sanders. And Wiltshire Clement. Michelle was here earlier.
She's there.
Wiltshire Clement. Okay, she doesn't seem to be on anymore. Oh, there she is.
There she goes. She's connecting to audio.
Michelle.
Hey, Michelle, we can't hear you.
Hi, I'm here. I was having technical difficulties.
Okay.
Thank
great.
you, Michelle. We
Thank you.
appreciate you.
So we're one short of quorum. So
It's
I don't know
okay.
if I any longer.
We'll begin, and then hopefully Marissa or Jessica will join us, and then we'll have quorum.
Okay, until then you can adopt the agenda. So we'll just move forward.
So we'll skip adopting the agenda. We'll skip adopting May committee meetings, and we will move forward. Announcements. Department of Transportation will be presenting on the Streets Master Plan, a proposal for 117th Street. Our executive committee meeting on July 8th. And no, okay. And anyone else? Okay, let's move forward then. What's next screen, Cardi? It should be our informational updates. There we go. Peter Gibbons, 3 Precinct.
Thank you very much, Jose. Thank you everyone for having me. As always, it's my pleasure. I'm Officer Gibbons from the 23rd Precinct, and I'll dive right into our crime report. Citywide crime is down 2.7%, but we're up in murders, rapes, felony assaults, and GLAs, grand larceny auto. That is a citywide. Citywide, we are down in robberies, burglaries, and grand larcenies. That is citywide again. For the 23rd Precinct, we're up slightly 2% year to date in crime. That's 413 major crimes versus 405 major crimes last year by this time. The categories that we are up in are robbery, 8.1% for the year, felony assault, 28.3% for the year, grand larceny just by a smidgen, 2.3% for the year, and grand larceny auto, 47.1% for the year. We are down year to date in the 23rd Precinct in murders, 33%, rapes, 14%, and burglary, 53%. So let me break that down a little bit for you as far as the last 28 days go. So the most recent news since the last time that we spoke, the precinct is up 33.3% in major crime. Murders, thankfully, we haven't had any since May 9th. That technically doesn't fall within the last 28 days, but it does happen to be, I believe, in the time since I was able to last address the committee. So let me talk a little bit about that. May 9th, there was a man murdered inside Lexington houses at 110 East 99th Street. Lexington houses are normally a very, very crime-free area, but unfortunately on that date, 2 people familiar with that area, but that don't live in the Lexington houses, brought a third party as part of a setup. They were all involved in the narcotics trade together, but they brought this third individual to the Lexington houses and they murdered him in the stairwell. They shot him dead. We arrested both of them after terrific detective work. I won't get into the details because my presentations usually run long, but terrific detective work. Trust me, we traced them to the Bronx with very, very little to go on and arrested both individuals for the May 9th murder of that man. While we're still on murder, though we didn't have any in the 28-day period, since last we did arrest the man responsible for the murder of Francisco Villalba at Port Richards Playground. That murder was on March 29th. He was arrested. Often these things identify somebody, but put together is a different matter. Putting an airtight case together that will convict someone and justice will be served takes time. Okay, so that's why we had to take our time with that. Tremendous work again by our detective squad to put together an airtight case. Moving on, at the 28-day period, which is 2 last year, statutory of a 14-year-old by a 20-year-old. Thank you. Next category, robberies. We had 14 in the period versus 10 in 2020. Kind of all over the map. 5 were strong arm robberies or just physical force used to take items. There was 1 robbery with a gun where an individual pulled up in a car, got out, flashed the gun at someone, pointed it at them, said, "Give me your property." Obviously they gave, and he got back in the car. Terrific work by the victim, who remembered the license plate. And unlike most robberies committed in vehicles these days, this person actually committed the robbery with their own vehicle. It wasn't a crazy nonsense paper plate from Texas or something like that most of these guys are using these days to commit robberies. He committed it in his own car with a real plate. So he was arrested that day by our detective squad. So terrific work by our victim in that case. Other robberies: 1 e-bike, 2 cell phones, 3 domestic violence related robberies, 1 commercial robbery where patrons of a deli beat the guy up. But no consistent patterns, no consistent MO or victim profile with our robberies. 14 versus 10. Felony assaults: 27 this 28-day period versus 20 in 2020. 8 domestic violence related, 6 in which arguments escalated to attacks with weapons or objects. That's a lot. We're seeing a lot of that. As I've mentioned in the past, a lot of times we're just seeing more people carrying knives or blunt instruments that could be used for this kind of thing than we have in the past. But I also think, even though we're opening up, pandemic stressors, as we've talked about in the past, are really taking their toll. A lot of arguments over nonsense are resulting in felony assaults. The headline category in felony assaults or subcategory is shootings. We had 6 in the 28-day period. May 27th at 314 East 104th Street. That was broad day shooters from the Washington houses. Members of that crew shot at 2 members of the LA World Carver crew who were on a block of 104th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Very strange for LA World members to be over in that enemy territory. Maybe they were casing the location, looking for someone from East River or Washington houses. Sadly for them, the broad day shooters of Washington saw them first and shot one of them, who took himself to Mount Sinai Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. On the 25th at 2205 2nd Avenue, a member of Jeff Mob from Jefferson houses shot another member of Jeff Mob, probably a mistake, probably trying to shoot somebody else or mistaken identity. This individual, the victim was riding a bike and was shot in the arm. The suspect has been ID'd in that case, but no arrest has been made as yet. On the 26th, sorry, I skipped the date. It was a rough 3 days, 25th, 26th, 27th. But on the 26th, in 1952 2nd Avenue, right around 101st Street, a delivery guy, again, sadly, grazed. And when I say grazed, I mean grazed. But obviously, it could have been anything. It could have been tons worse. We could be talking tragedy. He was grazed by, he was in the middle of a gang war. 2 arrests made immediately in the aftermath of that, of the shooter and his driver. The shooter was on the back of a scooter, a motor scooter, and the driver, they were arrested within an hour. That was Chico, who came all the way down from Jefferson houses, shot at a member of the broad day shooters. They didn't hit him, but they grazed a delivery man. On the 17th, the 5th shooting of the 28-day period, 109 and 1st Avenue, was the scene of an outdoor event, large party with DJ and dancing and that kind of thing. Suspect has been ID'd again. Suspect is from New Jersey. No arrest made as of yet. 511 on the 11th at 105 Street and 1st Avenue. There was a shooting, East River houses. Shooter shot at someone who lives in East River Landing, 1199, also known as. Very dangerous individual from the East Army crew, sort of a veteran of that crew, one of the longstanding members, and a tremendous rap sheet involving every manner of violence imaginable. We had nothing at first. We had an uncooperative complainant who took himself to Met Hospital and wouldn't talk to us, but we found the shooter. Technology, witnesses, great detective work. I could go on with the shots fired jobs as well. I won't, because this presentation is turning into a long one as usual, and I want to leave time for questions. Next category, burglaries. 8 this 28-day period versus 16 in 2020. The turnaround continues. We're down 52.7% year to date. Sorry, we are down, forgive me, 52.9% year to date in burglaries. Tremendous turnaround from last year. Grand larcenies, 31 in the 28-day period versus 21. last year. A lot of the same types of grand larcenies we're seeing. Month to month, unauthorized charges on accounts, unauthorized withdrawals from ATMs. Major issue. Pay attention to your documents. Shred, shred, shred. Don't share anything with anybody. Don't click on anything and respond to anything. Okay? Please don't give any information over the phone, via computer, via text, anything. You did not win $500 from Costco. There's no gift card. Home Depot does not want you to send you on a shopping spree just for the heck of it. That is a scam. They want your information. They're going to ask you to provide information so they can send you the money or send you the gift card. You provide that information, you're not going to see anything except money withdrawn from your account by some imposter. Other categories, unattended property. We saw 3 of those scams. We saw 4 e-bikes. Grand larceny is only 2. We've done a lot of outreach and a lot of registering of e-bikes, so that number has been cut down a little bit. Cell phone snatch, only 1 in the 28-day period, and thefts from motor vehicle, 1. GLA, grand larceny auto, 10 in the 28-day period versus only 5 in the previous year. 8 of them were motorcycles, 1 motor scooter and 1 car. The motorcycles are spread throughout the precinct. I know Jose is usually very interested in the locations. It's spread far and wide. There were 8 of them. If you want, I'll give you the information. Just ask me during the question and answer period. I can give you the location of each one of those. But they literally are spread throughout the period. But I would say that if there is a cluster, there were 3 taken in the southwest portion of, or I should say, in and around the southwest corner of Jefferson Park. Not inside Jefferson Park, but that area. 111 Street, 110 Street, 1st to 2nd, 1st to the FDR Drive. So that wraps up my presentation. Any questions? I see Marissa has her hand raised. I don't know if I'm stepping on toes, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Jose, am I being recognized? Sorry.
There you are, yes.
Okay, hi. Hi, sorry. Thank you so much for presenting. I am always just a little shocked by the amount of activity that is going on in our area. I'm thankful that I do not see everything, but very, very thankful that you guys have been doing the work that you're doing with technology, with the community, and getting down to the issues that are taking place in our community. So I wanted to say thank you for the work that you're doing to keep our streets safer. I had a quick question, well, 2 quick questions. One regarding the new initiative that's rolled out with the social workers and the police partnership. Is that something that the 23rd is taking, is working with, or are you a part of that initiative? And the second question is in regards to the paper plates and how that's kind of being dealt with right now. It's just kind of scary. I feel like we're seeing more and more of them on the road. A lot of people from quote unquote Texas, and or cars that are clearly old but have like new tags on them. So just wanting to get some more information about those 2 areas specifically.
So as far as the NYPD partnering with the Department of Health or Social Work or DHS or other agencies, we haven't officially been oriented in the procedure. So I haven't seen it once in our precinct yet. So I don't know if it's officially been rolled out citywide. It certainly hasn't been rolled out in the 23rd precinct, sort of as we knew it before, like the co-response unit to handle chronic mental health issues and chronic homelessness conditions. So right now we're still working in partnership with the city agencies, but we're not doing it together in a unified response. Where usually we will discuss an issue with Department of Homeless Services or Department of Health, ask for their advice, and ask if they want us involved in their outreach and response. And a lot of times we'll do a unified response, but we'll plan it in advance. It's not like, you know, I think what you're referring to is like you call 911 for an issue, and they'll dispatch officers who are teamed up with medical.
Right, correct. Mm-hmm.
Not happening yet. I can't
Okay,
say it's not happening elsewhere, but it's not happening here.
okay.
The paper plate issue, I feel a lot like you. It's a little bit overwhelming. There are way more paper plates than we can handle. I'll be very honest with you on that. And the reason is these are arrestable. That's not something we can write for. Forgery, creating a government document, which is what they're doing, is forgery, or lying to a state to say, oh, I'm in transit to Texas or from Texas or whatever state they might be using, and then receiving, that's also considered forgery. They are lying in the application for the document. If we arrested everybody for that, we'd have no cops on the street. So it has to be handled in a certain way. So what they're doing is trying to we're trying to target people who might be involved in the robbery business. It's hard though. It's very hard because you see how many are out there. But literally, we see more in a given shift than we have officers available to answer 911 calls. So it's very overwhelming. So I don't have a great answer for you on that. We still do arrest people for it, but usually that something will happen that draws our attention to that vehicle. We'll stop it because we think it might be involved in another type of crime. And then we may have to arrest for the forged document if we don't have probable cause for any other misdemeanor or felony.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
We have a raised hand.
Michelle has a question.
Oh, sorry, Michelle. Yeah.
Thank you for recognizing me. Wanted to say thank you for all of the work that you have been doing. And I appreciate the detailed descriptions that you have been giving. This is something that is my question is a little bit not specific to public safety, but specific to, I've seen many of the police officers prior to the lift on the mask wearing. And I was curious to find out if a lot of police officers have decided to be vaccinated and safe, so that when public do come up to them, especially in an area where it seems that not a lot of people have been vaccinated, so that they would be at risk. Have you noticed that a lot of your fellow colleagues have been vaccinated that are on the street?
Yes, I mean, it's not exact, but I tell you honestly, I'm an informal straw poll because it's basically the precinct is planning an organization for our morale, and that was roughly about third. The rest of the city, but that's about 2/3. But that's just, that's between us. I mean, it's not exact because I don't know. I don't have those figures for the rest of the precinct. If people aren't vaccinated, of course, procedure is still that they should be wearing masks when interacting with anybody. And I believe that whether they're vaccinated or not, they're supposed to be wearing masks still, simply because nothing official has come down from One Police Plaza about citywide change in the mask policy. Excuse me.
I asked because I've seen many police officers not wearing masks or having them below their chins, and people going up less than 3 feet asking questions. And so this is my concern, that it doesn't spread just because of something that didn't need to happen.
Once the executive orders changed, a lot of people, including police officers, took the opportunity to ditch the mask, especially if they're vaccinated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Let me see if we have any more questions. Carly, you had a question?
No more questions.
We will do in the fall, September. Hope you enjoy your summer, and you have you know that the summer is always trouble, always brings troubles, and hopefully the summer will be better and not as troublesome. But we'll still be around, and we still may meet in July. We're not sure what's going to happen, but thank you always for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Anytime you need anything, let me know, whether it's a piece of information or, you know, God forbid, anyone needs to report a crime. You can always contact us. We're the friendly face that you know and love. We're here all summer. Talk to you later.
Thank you. And I don't know if Aaron is here from the 25th. I know that change in, nope. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Here we go. Jeremy, District Attorney's Office. How are you?
Doing well. How's everybody doing? Let me know if my audio cuts out. I was getting difficulty on some the feedback, and I was hearing something. So if I am, just stop me. Hope everyone's doing well. I don't know if I necessarily, it's kind of controversial, but I don't necessarily love the heat. So I am struggling in it. This past Saturday, we were at King Towers. This group called Warm was hosting an event, and it felt like I was going to melt, but it was a good event. It was for domestic violence prevention. Went all the way basically from 12 to 4. I do think there will be more outdoor activities regardless of how hot it gets. It's important. And it's good to see people out, whether it's barbecuing, playing basketball, or just getting out there. So as far as for us, short update, our Harlem office, we're trying to open it up slower. Trying to open it up, but slowly. So we're 2 days in person. So if anyone wants to come for an appointment, our office is located in the Adam Clayton Powell State Building. You just have to call ahead. I'll put this information in the chat box, but specifically, if you want to speak to a counselor or a caseworker from our Witness Aid Service Unit, whether that's a domestic violence issue, young person, elderly, we're definitely available. I have a couple things I will share again in the chat box. One thing that's good for youth right now, we're opening up, and I know that the NYPD are doing, I won't speak for the programs with the adopted part of the park, but there have been some great basketball courts that have been turned over that are looking good. So I know that there's some good things in East Harlem. Our basketball program and soccer programming at Boys Club is going on Fridays and Saturdays still. And that's for ages 11 to 18. I think it's a great opportunity. I could drop the link in that. But again, I'm available if anyone has any questions. Stay cool, everybody. That's it for me.
All right, Jeremy, looks like they're giving you a pass today. No questions.
All right. All right.
All right, Jeremy, have a good summer. We look forward to seeing you in September.
I'll see you.
Okay, Associated Police and DOT. It's our friend Lyle with us tonight.
I'm here. How you doing, Jose?
Hey, I can hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you, not see you.
Okay. Yeah, my camera's all wonky today. That's why I'm on 2 different devices. I can get the screen on one, but no microphone, and a microphone on something else, but no screen. So
this is the better of the two. Good to have you, Lyle. Thank you for being here. Do you have any informational updates for us?
Yeah, just two quick updates. First, you aren't already aware, the plaza on 125th Street, Park Avenue construction was completed there the middle of last month. DOT had the final walkthrough with EDC before officially taking responsibility for the plaza as well. Just as a reminder, a few of the improvements that are in the plaza area, including enhanced crosswalk on 125th Street in between the plaza and the Metro North Station across the street, as well as additional lighting that should shine underneath the plaza, underneath the Metro North Railroad tracks. We've been working with Uptown Grand Central during the entire process. Will have continued to do so as a maintenance partner. And I encourage you to check the space out. I was in this neighborhood a little while ago, a few weeks ago, and it looks a lot better than it was before with the improved lighting and additional features. It's definitely more pedestrian friendly, and it's definitely a bit safer than it was before. We're going to work again, with the neighborhood and others in order to activate that space and to make sure that it is a success. So again, like I said, I encourage you to go. It's like I said, a marked improvement on what it was. Second quick update for you. I mentioned this at previous meetings, but just to reiterate, DOT's milling and resurfacing schedule continues. We've been in North Manhattan for the past few weeks. We haven't done to CB11 yet, but we should be in your area sometime in the next few weeks. Once the schedule is finalized for the district, we'll pass the information along to you. So that way I'll have a heads up ahead of time in case you have to make any plans or preparations to move cars, or at least you guys know which streets we're going to be working on when we get there. That's it for me, unless anyone has any questions.
All right, let's see what we have. So I have to go back and forth. No questions for Lyle? Guys being real good today. We did get some information about 117th, but I think it'll be ready in July. Unfortunately, our committee does not meet in July. It might, from what it seems, it might go to executive. But this committee is,
What's the news?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking, what's the news?
Oh, the 117th Street. We've been asking DOT for some time about the plan that they want to put into motion on 117th between Pleasant and the mall. There's a lot of issues with pedestrian traffic, vehicle traffic, lack of enforcement. Unfortunately, they weren't prepared for this meeting, and they'll have everything ready for July. Unfortunately, we don't meet in July. So I think we're kind of trying to work it out. Either we have the emergency meeting, or I believe Angel asked for, we could bring them to the executive meeting. But I'm hoping that it comes back to this meeting, because it's something that all of you I know have an interest in. I want to know what's going to happen in that area. That area has become a hot zone for our community, and I believe that we should have full participation in it. So we'll see how this works out. Carlos Diaz, I see you have a question.
I have a question, but it was for the 2.5 and the twin and the PSA 5. Remember, I was been complaining about drugs being sold near Taino Towers. Over this weekend, over the holiday, we had 2 deaths. One on 3rd Avenue, 122nd and 123rd, a half a block away from the PSA 5. And when people responded to it, the police responded. It was like 15 minutes later. It was an 8-shot, shot the guy right in the car and killed him. And the police department didn't show up about 5 minutes later. And they're only like a half a block away. That's number one. We talked about them selling drugs on 123rd Street. Again, that guy was part of selling drugs on 123rd and 122nd Street. And I was told that they were looking into it. this is what happens when they look into stuff like this. I mean, it's crazy to hear somebody got killed on 3rd Avenue, and then 2 days later, you hear somebody get killed on Lexington Avenue, the same cross street between on Lexington Avenue and 122nd and 123rd. So I know that Aaron is not around. I don't know if the 25 PSA 5 is not around, but I think that they should respond to these issues because it is very important because it's happening in a community where you have a major development with Scott Taino Towers, and you know people are now congregating, not here for the summer. It looks
what
like
we're gonna do, Carlos, is that we're gonna follow up with them, even though we're not meeting during the summer so far, but you know we're all here, we're all still in the community. You know, it's within our purview to continue to investigate and check, particularly when the violence is escalated this way. And you have brought this up before. Since Aaron's not here, we don't know, you know, what's happened. Also, as you know, once police starts investigating, they really don't give us information until after the investigation. So,
no, I understand, but I think what we need to do is have some kind of police presence in that area. We don't have it. Half a block away, you got PSA 5, and they just like locked into that area there. They have a barricade that don't even move from that area. An officer that I guess protects the precinct, but they don't even move out. When you hear 5, 8 shots being shot and you still don't budge, I mean, that's just a concern. And you're only a half a block away from the incident.
Absolutely.
And the concern of people
I don't want to jump in, but I know Carlos has been mentioning this for a number of meetings now. And so maybe there's something that we can do in terms of sending an email or something else, because he's constantly brought this up. And to have, you know, I don't know what it takes, but just to have police presence in an area doesn't seem like it's so much to ask. And that's not to you, you know, Jose, I'm just saying in general, you know, maybe we can send an email or just ask, you know, like what's going on, because there's constant activity in this area. You know, there should be somebody that's kind of stationed around there, you know.
Thank you, Marissa. That's why what I told Carlos is really what we're going to do is we're going to follow up at the office. We'll make sure to follow up with Aaron and try to get some information to see, like, you know, and as we know, once they start an investigation in the area, they may not be able to give us much information. However, just knowing that they're doing something is important. But it's something that we're going to follow up regardless of whether we're meeting or not meeting. And we'll make sure to disseminate the information to the committee.
Thank you.
So we have a question from Diane. Is this for Lyle?
This is for Lyle. Hi, Lyle. Hello, everyone on the call. It's good to see everybody, or not see everybody, at least your name. This question is really for you, Lyle. At a recent town hall at the Riverton with Adriano Gale and Brian Benjamin, the TA president brought up the fact that there was a concern about pedestrian safety at the crosswalks of 135th and 5th Avenue, and also at 135th and Madison. Now, I know it's been some time since we did some configurations around that. Is it possible that we can do another traffic study at that location? You know, it's always been an issue of traffic up in that location because of going to the Bronx. I'm just putting it on the record because it may come back, being that it was brought up at that particular town hall meeting. And of course, everyone had a solution, but it all comes down to contacting DOT.
Yeah, we can take a look. I know we've had conversations in the past as far as pedestrian and traffic safety improvements in the area. As you recall, we've done some improvements in the past, trying to clean up the area, ideally around the Madison Avenue section, as you mentioned, coming off the bridge. We can take another look at that area to see if there's anything additional that can be done. As you know, DOT's work is never done as far as when a project is finished. Even though we, put something into the ground, we put some paint on, or we do make some changes, we're always willing to come back to a location in order to make some tweaks and adjustments if necessary. So if we need to go back out there and see if there's anything that can be done in order to make it a little bit more safer, we can take a look to see what we can do. If you can send me an email, Diane, just with those concerns, we can start a conversation, a dialogue and we can try to see if we can get the ball rolling on something that works for you.
Thank you, Lyle, because I wanted to get a heads up since you're on the call tonight, because part of course, is, you know, when they have these town halls and everybody's at the town hall, every elected official, they all try to make a collaboration between CB10 and CB11. But I think this is mostly because it sits in the Riverton area. So I'm giving you a heads up on that. It might come out of CB10 as well.
Yeah, I know that you guys share the border by Fifth Avenue, so no problem. And the meeting is tomorrow night, so it might come up. You're absolutely right. So no problem. We can have a conversation with both community boards. You know, it's usually split, separated, you know, between East and West. But like I said, we would normally in this instance take a comprehensive look at that intersection. So if it's conversation that needs to take place between both community boards, or if it's just CB11 specific, yeah, we can try to see what can be done. If need be, we can have those conversations. No problem.
Thanks. So, and Jose, I'm going to bring up another issue that came up at that town hall, and really doesn't fit into public safety, but it could fit into public safety and parks. It's the issue of Harlem River Park, where there is a lot of crime over in that area, and also the fact that a lot of the motorbikes are constantly in the area, and that came up in the meeting as well. So I don't know if we should be looking at it as part of public safety or be looking at it as part of parks, because it is on the river, the waterfront.
What exactly was the topic, Diane? The dirt bikes or?
Dirt bikes, yeah, I call them the motorbikes, but it's the dirt bikes, as you know, the kids, because it's
they do congregate in that particular park.
Right, and they, you know, they can ride up and down because it's not a park that's extremely crowded, or hasn't been extremely crowded, but it's an issue for many of the tenants, particularly the ones in the river bend, because they hear the sounds of the motorbike, as you call it, dirt bikes, which they are. So I'm not sure where this cross between us, between parks. I sit on both committees, so.
So you're our joining piece then.
I guess.
It's probably something that falls under both, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
I'm not sure what there is to discuss. Is a long-standing issue. Most of them younger kids. Definitely a public safety issue. Definitely a parks issue. I'm not sure what the exact resolution is. The city has taken steps. They do crackdowns on the bridge every weekend, particularly the bridges coming into East Harlem and leaving. What they'll do is they'll stay on the bridge because it's much easier to catch them within the confines of the bridge as it is outside, where they can jump on the sidewalk or go every which way.
So again, I bring it to our attention because Gail was on that call and she kept mentioning she's going to bring it to the attention of CB11. So,
well, it's been on our attention for the last 15, 20 years.
You know, so it's giving us all a heads up that it could come back.
No, definitely. Thank you for that.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Diane. We have any more questions for our friend Lyle? Please make it difficult for him. We're not going to talk to him for a little bit. Lyle, thank you so much. Enjoy your summer. We look forward to seeing you in September, and I'll probably see you in July, depending on what happens with the plan for 117th Street, if it goes to executive or if we have an emergency meeting. We'll figure that out as we go along.
Right. No problem. Thanks, everyone. Have a good summer if we don't speak before July.
Diane, do you have another question for Lyle, or is your?
It's well, yeah. It's part of it is what Lyle had talked about with the plaza reopening again, and it falling under the direction of Uptown Grand Central. And Carrie's not here tonight, but what I would suggest, I think Marissa's on the call, to have Carrie show up at the economic meeting to talk about what is going to be expected of us in terms of offering the space for certain pop-ups, if we can do it. And I know Lyle just kind of touched on it, but she can probably give you more detail as to what we will be looking at. We're focusing right now for everyone on the call, maintenance, because as everyone know, that is a very difficult area to keep clean. We're looking at putting up fencing around it as well. But in the meantime, we're trying to keep it looking beautiful, Lyle, since it was given back to us as a clean space. So I just wanted to let you know, Marissa, to speak to Carrie about that.
That's great. And actually, I have one question. Thanks for bringing that up, Diane. Lau, I will throw you a question because we can't let you get off that easy. How is DOT or EDC able to help with that? You know, I know obviously Uptown Grand Central is doing a great job, but what are their efforts as well in terms of maintaining that space?
Oh, as far as what we expect from the maintenance partner in that regard, you mean?
Yes, or okay, so there is a maintenance partner. Like, what does it look like in terms of maintaining that space, or what's the current, you know, setup for that?
I think Uptown Grand Central is the maintenance.
Yeah. Ideally, DOT is working when it comes to plazas in general. Usually, how it goes, for a particular location, if there's a maintenance partner or if there's a group that's willing to maintain responsibility of the space as far as general maintenance and upkeep, in regards to cleaning the space, being the stewards, our eyes and ears in a sense, as far as not necessarily being the guardians, but there's any particular furniture that needs to be picked up or collected, assisting with activation of that space as well, to make sure that, you know, there are activities on that space, encouraging others to use that space as well for other activities. DOT works with those maintenance partners in order to make sure that that space is maintained from a safety standpoint and from a general overall maintenance standpoint. We work together as a team just to make sure that that space is up and running. So, you know, all throughout this process, we've been working with Uptown Grand Central with Carrie and Diane to make sure that, you know, they've had, you know, a seat at the table as far as, you know, what's going to happen before, during, and after. Now that the space is again in DOT control, if there are any issues that Uptown Grand Central may have as far as lighting, infrastructure things, you know, as Diane was mentioning the fence, you know, we're trying to see if we're working with them, you know, to see if anything can be done from a DOT angle as well, that sort of thing. So, you know, we're partners working in two different ways in order to more or less meet the same goal, you know, from different angles. So once DOT gets that space back, you know, it's more or less under our jurisdiction and responsibility. And with the maintenance partner, we help to activate, maintain that space, and make sure it's clean and safe for everyone.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks, Lyle, for that additional information. And thanks, Diane. I'll keep a lookout.
Yeah, Jose, I just want to add that the space that we're talking about is from 125th to 124th. That whole area is now under the stewardship of Uptown Grand Central.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations.
Or else condolences.
with great responsibility, with great power. All right. Lyle, again, thank you for being here with us, for joining us again after abandoning us for a few months. We appreciate you being here. And we look forward to talking to you in September. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good summer, everyone. If I don't talk to you before the July meeting for the executive, or if there's a special one, and if you guys need anything from DOT or from me, you know where to find me. Just say the word, and we'll see what we can do for you as always. No problem.
Thank you, Lyle.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Now we have a presentation. So update by the MTA, reconstruction of the Park Avenue Viaduct. Mark Mannix.
Yes, good evening. That's Mark Mannix. Can you hear me?
Good evening, loud and clear.
Okay, just want to make sure. I'm glad we could join you this evening. You know, Angel had reached out to me last week about appearing before the committee. So I was glad we were able to do it tonight. So thank you, Jose, and the rest of the committee and other members joining us tonight. Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce, just mention the other folks from MTA and Metro North that are on the meeting tonight. And we'll be presenting is Mike Sheehan, who is the project CEO on the Park Avenue Viaduct, Leslie Mesnick, and Julianne Yee from Caladium Group that working with us on outreach. Joe O'Donnell, who's with MTA Construction and Development, who oversees public affairs. And then we have also from the project team, Ziona Rubin, Margarita Calbataza, and Colin McCrane. So with that, we have a presentation we're going to go through, and then after the presentation, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the background on the Park Avenue Viaduct and the importance of the viaduct to not only Metro North, but obviously to the Harlem community. The project purpose and need to replace sections of the viaduct. The viaduct is in need of replacement in various sections. We'll go through that tonight. We'll also share with you some very conceptual renderings of the construction that we anticipate, as well as the schedule for replacement and outreach, which is important, and that's why we're here tonight. And then, like I said, we'll take questions. So next slide is to give you just a frame of some context on the viaduct itself. It's, as you all know, it's an elevated steel structure. It's 128 years old, built in 1893, and it carries all four Metro North's tracks into and out of Grand Central Terminal. And that's carrying 98% of our trains use the viaduct to get into Grand Central and out of Grand Central every day. And that's 750 trains carrying 220,000 customers on the viaduct. Mind you, that is before COVID, these numbers, but it still gives you a indication of how significant the importance of the viaduct is to not just Metro North, but to the region as a whole in terms of the economy. And it's 1.25 miles long, and it's actually 5 track miles if you times that by the 4 tracks. And as I mentioned, it's a main artery that carries all our riders into Grand Central Terminal, but also importantly, it serves the Harlem community. We have the Harlem 125th Street station, as you can see in the red box there, right on top of the viaduct. That's a key, point in Harlem in terms of the service. And if you go to the next slide, it gives you an indication of why the viaduct is important to Harlem. This is a station that served over 5 million customers in 2019. That's 38,000 weekly riders traveling to and from Harlem 125th Street. And it's the only station outside of Grand Central where you can catch a train and go either up the Hudson line to Poughkeepsie, up the Harlem line to Wassaic or White Plains, you name it, or on the New Haven line all the way up to New Haven, Connecticut. It's actually our 3rd busiest station in the Metro North system. And, like I said, it serves the Harlem neighborhood. And, you have residents that travel out of the city, reverse commuters from Harlem to points north, as I mentioned, for work, for pleasure, to visit family, you name it, and just go to school, possibly as well. And the importance of the station is the reason why we've spent in recent improvements $24 million at and around the train station. So with that, I'll just highlight some of those improvements we made in the last few years. We improved the lighting, and DOT talked a little bit about the lighting as well. And that's the lighting around the station at 125th Street underneath the viaduct. We also replaced the staircase to the south, and you can see that in the picture there, those two staircases that lead up from 125th Street up to the platform. We also have improved the platform area with new benches, new artwork, new digital arrival and departure screens, which you see there on the right side of the presentation. Also, closed circuit TV, cameras and help points, Wi-Fi, and a new PA system on the platform, as well as improvements in the station building itself. And we also last summer did some painting improvements on the viaduct at 132nd Street. So with that, I'm going to focus on now the viaduct and the replacement project, which is a project we've teamed up. Metro North has teamed up with MTA Construction and Development to replace, as I mentioned, major segments of the viaduct. The first segment is between East 115th Street and 123rd Street, and then also between 128th and 132nd Street along Park Avenue. This is a state of good repair project. It's to replace those segments of the viaduct, so it's in good condition and lasts hopefully another 128 years. And it's important to note that there will be no change to the existing number of tracks that are currently on the viaduct. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Sheehan, who, as I mentioned, is the project CEO, to talk a little more about the need for the project and why it's critical. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you to the community board for the opportunity to talk about the project. The project need, as Mark mentioned, all the Metro North trains have to use the viaduct to serve the Harlem 125th Street Station and Grand Central Terminal. There are just no alternate routes. Again, without the viaduct, Metro North can't serve Manhattan, it can't serve the Bronx, it can't serve all points in North. The viaduct is a single point of failure. To drive that point home one more time, without the viaduct, we can't have the Metro North service as we know it. Looking at the structure, and the reality is the viaduct is not in a state of good repair. As Mark mentioned, it's a couple centuries old. In the 1890s, it was designed. And as you could probably guess, the original design intention from the 1890s is not type of locomotives and trains that are being run over there today. Next slide, please. So why now? Again, the viaduct's 128 years old, getting older every day. From the structural engineering standpoint, which is where my background is, the structure continues to show signs of distress. The viaduct is beyond its fatigue life. Steel, like a paperclip, can only take so many times before it starts to weaken, and we're seeing signs of that right now. From the financial standpoint, there's an increasing cost every year that Metro North, the taxpayers, have to incur for maintenance and upkeep and repairs to the structure. And most importantly, we don't want a failure to happen. We don't want the viaduct to make the news. We have a job as public employees, as engineers, to ensure that the infrastructure is safe and reliable for the trains, the riders on the trains, the people below the viaduct, and the community adjacent to the viaduct. Next slide, please. So the area where we're focusing on the full replacements is along Park Avenue between East 115th Street to East 123rd Street. Then we get to the station platform area, which will be a rehab for the project. The north of the station platform at 128th Street to 131st Street, we're going to look at the full replacement again. It's important to note we are not closing the station down during construction. Next slide, please. Having told you that there's problems in the viaduct, there are enhanced safety measures that we're taking to help mitigate those risks. So on the next slide. So some of the short-term safety measures we're taking, we're inspecting the structure at increased frequency. We've adjusted that frequency as needed, and we're spending the time necessary to make sure that we catch the problems before they become big problems. We're doing a lot of additional non-invasive type testing. And we also have on staff at Metro North the maintenance away, the structures gangs who go out and fix things, right away. Another thing where Metro North is taking on is an interim repair project, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. This interim repair project is the same areas of 115 to 123rd, and then 128th to 131st Street. And what we're going to be doing starting this summer is installing new steel brackets along the columns. The project, this is a separate little project. It's to help decrease the risk of something happening. It's gonna, you see the renderings on the right, it's the color is going to match the existing color that's out there. Importantly, there's one lane of traffic in northbound and southbound Park Avenue. We're going to be maintaining that one lane of traffic as well. We just wanted to mention it now since we have the community forum that there will be some work going on this summer. Next slide, please. So next, what we're going to show you are just renderings to kind of give you a sense of what kind of construction are we talking about. And this is the construction for the replacement of the whole viaduct, so that 115 to 123rd and the 128 to 131 area. So next slide, please. Renderings of the existing structure. You'll notice that there's no tenants below the viaduct. We have been in talks with New York City between DCAST and DOT and EDC on, what's going to happen with the tenants during construction, what the viaduct is going to look like, what the land's going to look like after construction as well. So we have been in talks with the city for a couple of months now, and we are continuing those talks. Next slide, please. So the first aspect of replacing the structure is the substructure. You're only as good as your foundation. These foundations are, again, 1890s threes, so they have to get replaced. So a lot of the work's going to happen underneath the viaduct while maintaining that northbound and southbound one existing travelway for cars. It's going to be a contained operation. Then we go to the next slide. The next slide is when we get into actually replacing the structure, the superstructure that holds the trains up. So we're going to show you a kind of a concept of how we think it may happen with the contractor through using the New York State law of design build process. We're showing a red SPMT, a self-propelled modular transport unit for the accelerated bridge type construction. So this is going to show it's going to pull the existing bridge out of place like that. And then the new bridge will come in on the next slide here. Oh, sorry, they build the substructure pier caps, and then the new bridge comes in on similar SPMTs, and it gets slid into place. It's important to note that while this operation helps, speed the construction up, that the new bridge will be assembled on the street prior to this happening. Next slide, please. This is just one of very, very many conceptual renderings of what the new structure may look like. We are working with SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, and other Harlem stakeholders about what that new structure may look like. Next slide, please. And everything's gonna be new, as Mark mentioned. 1893, couple centuries old here. Everything from the track on down to the steel that holds it up to the foundations that support it will be new. Next slide. So real quick, what do we anticipate the project schedule and where will you see construction happening? Well, as I mentioned, the interim repair project starting now in 21, it will be completed in less than a year from now. MTA Metro North, we have just wrapping up our master plan study phase. We are moving into the preliminary engineering award, and during the PE and then into the design build RFP phase, the end of 21 into 22 is really when we're going to have a lot of, I'm sure, questions be answered on, how exactly is it going to happen? Well, again, because New York State law has to be design build, that's when we're going to work with the different contracting teams to try to figure out what's best for the community, what's best for the tenants below, what's best for the railroad. How do we take all those very complex issues and mix them all together to get the best result for everybody? So we're looking at the design build award late next year in 2022, and with construction in the first area wrapping up in 2025. Next slide, please. So briefly, I'm going to talk about some benefits. Then I'm going to turn it over for to talk more about the community outreach. So benefits, obviously safety is the most important thing. Safety of the traveling public below, on the viaduct, adjacent to the viaduct. Safety is of the utmost importance. And that's what this project is driving this project. The viaduct will be new. It'll be a lot better than the 1893 viaduct that's out there. And as Mark mentioned, the viaduct will be able to continue to serve the Harlem community, for decades, centuries to come. Another good benefit of the project is it will include tens of millions of dollars for DBE disadvantage-based enterprise contracts. It's also known as the minority-based and women-based contracts as well. Another thing we've been working with the DOT on is, what infrastructure improvements should we be making as part of this project? And that ties into the discussions that MTA is having with the DOT and New York City on what the space below will look like afterwards and how we can make improvements at the same time. Another good benefit to the local community, a lot of construction workers, they will spend money in the community, as we all know. Everybody likes to eat, construction workers like to eat as well. So hopefully there'll be a nice little uptick in spending within the local community. Lastly here, the thing that I'm very excited about and we can talk more about in the next slide too is a STEM program that we're going to work with Caladium, our public outreach consultant, and MTA. We've done this before on other projects where we go to the local schools, talk about what's going on, talk about the opportunities for within high school, college, and beyond in the science, technology, the engineering fields. This is a once in a lifetime type opportunity. It's happening within the local community, and it'd be great to get the kids, the students engaged and really understand what's happening and where they might have a potential future for themselves. Next slide, please. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie Mesnick, who's going to talk about the stakeholder and community coordination.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to the community board for making time in your day and in your meeting to have us here. These kinds of conversations are what's going to make the project successful. So we're very happy to be here and to be here early. Next slide, please. So like Mark said at the beginning, this is a neighborhood that MTA knows well. We've been here before. We're excited to be here again. Even though we're very early in the project, we've been actively coordinating with a wide variety of stakeholders for quite some time now, and you see just a few of them mentioned here. Through these conversations, we've gotten some very important information about other goals going on in the community, other activities, other plans, other developments, and we're taking all this feedback and we're listening very, very carefully, and we're using it to sort of sketch out what future coordinations could look like. Next slide, please. So we're thinking ahead not just to the interim repairs that Mike spoke about, but to the overall replacement project, which will require a lot of communication. Good information is going to be key to keeping the residents and the business owners and the commuters well informed and to have a solid handle on what to expect and when to expect it. And we're thinking very broadly, very creatively about the wide variety of tools that we'll need to communicate. So, we're in an age where we need all kinds of digital information, and social media is a very helpful tool. We're also going to need signage. We're going to need signage to help people cross streets or know how to get around certain traffic detours. We're very open to discussions with all of you about community centers and other methods for getting out accurate information to the right people. And because we're starting so early, we have time. We have time to build the stakeholder list and to make sure that we're hitting all of the folks that we really want to reach as part of this outreach program. We intend to continue to have regular meetings like this, where we're open to your suggestions on other groups. And then like Mike said, we want to think creatively and really come up with ways during construction that this can be a benefit to the community. Obviously, the major project benefits, the transportation advantages, the safety advantages of replacing the viaduct and keeping the station viable and robust, those are obvious benefits to the Harlem community. But during the construction period, there are these opportunities to really lift up the community, and we want to work with you and talk to you about that more as the project proceeds. Next slide. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mark, who I think is going to help us take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. So
Start with Marissa has a question.
questions, I don't know, Angel, how do you want to handle this? Or Jose?
That's Jose's show. Hi, Mark.
Oh, okay.
Angel's incognito here. Look at him, right? Haven't seen him in our meeting in a long time.
Got to make sure you behave, Jose.
All right, so we have Marissa, then Jessica, and then Michelle.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for the presentation and update and just providing a bit more information on clearly what needs, to be done for the viaduct. Obviously, you want to make sure that everyone is safe as they are traveling, I guess, on top of us or above us through the Harlem area. And so, understanding that this is something that's needed, I think the best thing to discuss at this point is, as you mentioned, how this is beneficial for the community and how this will take place without making such a disruption to the businesses and to the people within the catchment area of where you'll be working. So one question, actually I have two questions. The first one is the plans for moving some of the businesses that might be in the way of the area that's being worked on. How is that not only, I guess, being presented to them, but what are your, I guess, immediate plans for moving businesses and or providing separate locations for those businesses so that they can still thrive during this time? And then the second is, I understand that you obviously cannot necessarily only hire from within the community, but how can you write into the contract for people that will be hired for this project that there can be some sort of preference for individuals that live within the community that you are working in, because this community is a underserved community. It's we're not talking about 42nd Street. We're in an area where we have individuals who do need jobs, who would appreciate some sort of a apprenticeship program or something of that nature. But how has that been discussed, and how are you moving forward with those two items?
Okay, I can start and then I'll ask Mike or to jump into at any point. On the first part about the plans for the businesses below the viaduct, we've had and continue to have discussions with the city. It involves various city agencies, from EDC to DCAS to DOT, and those discussions are continuing. So we coordinate and come up with a plan. As we mentioned, I mean, we're looking at a year from now. Right now, as far as best case scenario for the work starting on the replacement. So we have some time, but it's important. That's something that we still need to figure out, and we're still focused on, and working with the city and obviously with the tenants, because we want to make sure that there's a little disruption as possible, and to figure that all out at the same time sequencing the construction. It's a challenge, and it's something that we're going to meet that challenge and work with the city and try to accommodate everybody as best as possible, and to come up with a plan that hopefully everybody will be able to live with, that is involved. It's a collaborative plan that involves the city and the other stakeholders. And we, like for instance, this Friday, we're meeting with Friends of La Marqueta. We met with them, talked to them last year as well. And we had a meeting a couple weeks ago with various stakeholders in the Harlem community. So it's an ongoing discussion, but it's a big focus of how we do this project the right way, realizing that this is going to have some impact, and hopefully we come out at the end with which I think will be, not I hope, it will be a good plan. So that's the first answer to your question.
So just
then-
before you jump to the second, just opine there just briefly. So in terms of those conversations, a year from now, you know, I really feel like for businesses is right around the corner in terms of you know, moving and planning, and then also for them to have to market and do whatever they need to do for their businesses, right? So just wanted to make sure I know. Thank you, obviously, for having the meetings, right? And thank you for engaging them, and just making sure that, you know, there is an outcome that everyone is happy with. I would also offer that you engage, and I believe you've been speaking with Angel, but just to make sure that you have someone that is representing of the community board as well, so that we are in the know. Obviously, we're not a business under there, but we do care about our businesses within the community. So I would implore you to ensure that there is a representative from CB11 when you're having those meetings as well, that can just think more holistically. And so thank you. Now for the second part of the question, I think you were going to go into that.
Mark, can I just jump in here real quick? I just want to clarify, we're looking at a year and a half from now of construction starting. So once construction would start, then the businesses would have to be relocated. So it's a year from now is when we're hopeful to have that design build contractor fully engaged and realize what the best plan is for everybody and select that design builder. And it's at least a year and a half from now. It is at the end of 2022 is when we're gonna, you know, we'll be looking to relocate businesses then.
Perfect. Thank you for that update. Thank you.
Mike, would you be able to?
Yeah, I can take the second question.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So the question was about how can the MTA ensure hiring within the local area? So this is a federally funded contract, and we can't, by federal law, require a contractor to hire within the local area. However, I know the MTA is aware of legislation and discussions that are ongoing within Washington, D.C. about potentially having some aspect of that be included. You know, as of right now, that it's not possible. There are things that the MTA does do in their Department of Diversity and Civil Rights. They do a lot of outreach. They do a lot of outreach within the local Harlem community to make sure that the contractors are aware of these opportunities and to help team smaller contractors with the larger overall general contractor as well.
Great, thank you. And just one, I guess, just one follow up to that, since, you know, I know that there are things that are still in the works. Is there I know you have community outreach, but do you have a foundation or anything of that nature that actually gives back to the community? So I appreciate the outreach and to let people know that the opportunities are there so that they can apply. But is there any specific outreach? I know you mentioned the STEM, I believe you mentioned that in your presentation and talking to the schools in regards to that. But is there anything in terms of like specific either financial literacy or some sort of like give back that the MTA does that in lieu of you know, actually hiring individuals from the area, which you cannot specifically do, that at least you're actually, you know, giving back in some tangible way to the community that is being impacted by this update?
I can answer that. You know, MTA, Metro North, we're a public agency, so we rely on public funding. You know, so we're not a private entity. So I wish we had a foundation, but we don't. You know,
no, I just meant foundation as in terms of like an example, but of something of that nature where you have a community impact, you know, arm that can do some work within the community.
Yeah, you know, in terms of, you know, if you're speaking about like as far as financial investment, I think, you know, it's something that, you know, as I mentioned, you know, we you know, have our station there, and that, you know, is a focal point of the community, and we've invested in that station because we're part of the community. So I think that's, you know, any funding that we have, you know, is directed towards, you know, investing in public transportation and improving it. So, That, really is what we do in terms of investing in the community. But there's other things like, Leslie and Mike talked about the STEM program that we would look to do, and outreach as well, even with, potential contractors, doing some type of outreach and public forums with, potential, for subcontractors that, may be interested in, different work that they might be able to do as part of the overall contract. So those are things that, we would look at, and, we've heard about from some of the community stakeholders already, and we're hearing that tonight from you. So those are the things that we take into consideration as we move forward with the procurement contract.
Hey,
Perfect.
Mark,
Thank you both. Oh, yeah. go ahead.
I just want to make 2 quick points here. Last, I said we are working with the DOT. We don't have tangible things, but typically, some improvements we'll make above and beyond just replacing the viaduct itself. As I said, replacing the traffic lights. Maybe they want to reconfigure pedestrian flows or curbs or other things of that nature. We've heard from other Harlem community stakeholders about how they might want to see the viaduct look. So, all those great feedback we're getting from the various stakeholders we're taking and trying to incorporate it in the project. We are still early on. We're still wrapping up the planning phase. We haven't yet begun the preliminary engineering phase. So a lot of these details will be more clear in the coming months or so. And the last point, the MTA is also investing in the Second Avenue subway. And, that should also be a very big benefit to the community as well when that's the phase 2, when that gets built.
Absolutely. No, and thank you both. And actually, thank you all 3 for presenting and keeping that part of the Metro North safe for us. And it is appreciated. So just making sure we're getting, as much as we can in regards to the benefits from this project. So thank you. Thank you.
I'll just add one last thing is that I mentioned it with the station work that we've done. There's always a Arts for Transit component to our projects, not just with Metro North, but even with New York City Transit and the subways. So that's something that, we would definitely, this is going to be a major project. So that's something that we would look at.
That's awesome, because that's part of, in terms of economic development and culture, we've been looking at how to engage artists in different ways. And so, that's something that would be a great discussion in regards to, looking at how that can be incorporated into the new infrastructure. So thank you again.
All right, next we have Jessica, then Michelle, then Diane.
Thanks, Jose. Thank you, Marissa. Mark, Mike, Leslie, and Joe, thank you all for being here and sharing insight into this incredible state of good repair project that cuts through the heart of our community. It will no doubt be a disruption, but I think it is something that is at the same time a transformational opportunity on the other side. A couple of things. If there's more information about what's going on in DC about the local hiring legislation, if you could let us know, drop something in the chat, or I will do some research. I think that's something that we want to know about with the big infrastructure bill on the floor, and with a lot of big infrastructure happening in our community. It relates to this question of pipelines to jobs, pipelines to opportunities. And the further back you can build out that pipeline, the better. As a community benefit, we want more than a bunch of hungry construction workers. And lunch is great, but the, like I said, the transformational opportunity for generations to benefit from this type of investment, it starts here. The fact that you're here early is so exciting. The fact that you have design build authority is also super exciting. And the fact that you're really interested in working with the community is also, as you can tell, super exciting. My question is, I put a link in the chat to Lavender Lane, downtown by the seaport. They've got a really nice purple underbelly. There are things that have to happen, and there are things that can happen when things have to happen. So I would encourage you all to infrastructure is life, and it's our lifeblood. So to consider these opportunities, things like if there is a way to incorporate extra electricity from the type of braking that happens all the time when trains roll into our neighborhood, is that a source for lights where they don't exist now? Can drainage be used to feed green infrastructure instead of feeding our sewer system? Is piezoelectricity something that can be, when heavy things roll over things, you get extra friction, heat, and electricity? A lot of work Design Trust for Public Space is done with Under the L. I know your purview is limited, but it's a gateway to a future. Regarding, this is my last kind of question, and it is really actually a question. With regard to the STEM outreach, do you know what age range you're gearing that towards, or your subcontractor community engagement firm is gearing that towards? And I ask because DDC in the city has a robust STEM program at the high school level, but they haven't built back through the middle school level. So looking to extend pipelines back to really interested high performers at the 7th, 8th grade point of interest, where you either lose them or you keep them, and making sure that they get on the right track, no puns intended, to find these opportunities as transformational in their lives as well. So if you could say a little bit more about the STEM program and any sort of information you have about the DC local hiring legislation, would be much appreciated. All other things, please keep us informed at every point. Marissa's comment about having community board representation, to think holistically. I think we're excited, even though it's a huge nuisance. I think we're excited because there's so much good to come from this kind of investment. If it's understood as what has to happen, there's opportunities within that beyond just the bare minimum.
Thank you for your questions on that. Leslie, do you want to talk a little bit about past STEM programs?
Yeah, I'm
it's
jumping out of
that-
my seat to talk about it.
It's something we're going to develop over the next coming months, and it's going to happen, not tomorrow, but in a year or two from now. Leslie, please.
Jessica, thank you for your insightful questions, and I really appreciate your vision and the way that you're looking into this project. My colleague Julianne and I, we ran a STEM program for a $2.6 billion MTA project on Long Island that spans 10 miles. And this was just an idea because we got so much feedback during the public review period from schools about, is this going to cause noise? What's it going to do to learning? And the more we talked to the teachers, we said, we can turn this around. You've got a once in a lifetime construction project happening in your backyard. These kids are going to grow up talking about what they saw and talking about this, and their grandkids are going to ride over these train tracks. And it's the same here. They're going to ride over this viaduct and say, I remember when it was being built. So our approach was very bottom up, not top down. We are not educators. We didn't know which age groups would be most receptive and which schools would be most receptive. So we went in to talk to every school, private, public, elementary, middle school, high school. For that project, we were a little bit surprised. We found that all of the middle schools were the most interested, and that seems to be a combination of the curriculum and the testing programming. Some of the high schools sounded, seemed that they had so much that they had to teach and the testing requirements are so strict that they didn't really have enough space in their year to bring us in a lot. But we did career days, and we did a lot of kinds of one-off events with the high schools. Similar to the elementary schools, there's a lot of rail safety opportunity, and MTA has some remarkable rail safety program, and that's very age appropriate for the younger kids. But nothing beats a good time-lapse video, so the elementary school kids couldn't get enough of that. But in terms of really getting into the meat of it, for that project, middle school, for whatever reason, it just really fit in with their curriculum, and they weren't quite as burdened with some of the testing. But we, again, we're open to suggestions, but we talk to them first. We know Urban Assembly has a global commerce program you know, and moving materials by rail and by truck is a part of what they're learning. So if there was some particular avenue with that kind of school in their curriculum, you know, we'd love to be a part of it. So you know, too early for us to say, other than we want to talk to the schools first that are adjacent to the project corridor and hear how we can be helpful to them, and then take it from there.
As far as connecting to DDC and their pipeline, that might be something to look into. If you need a contact there or anything like that, I'm happy to provide that and make a connection. Because the more conversations you can have about extending that pipeline for kids who are interested earlier and they have places to go with it, I think then you're really building out the social infrastructure as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I understood that. Thank you for your comments. And, you know, we'll definitely be back before the community board before these programs start. So
as far as some of those other technologies, the regenerative braking, drainage, you know, integrating the pieces of infrastructure that feed other more mundane infrastructure, is that something that MTA has a consideration for in communities that have a lot of hardscape and not a lot of parkscape, and something to consider when you're early in the design process and potentially could set some things up to down the line in 10, 15, 20 years, connect in different ways that if you don't think of now, they don't happen. Is there any consideration for those types of forward-thinking incorporation of technologies, lighting where there isn't going to be, where there may be opportunity, those sorts of things that are a little bit out of bounds?
Yes, thank you. You know, the MTA is always committed to being, you know, green. New York State is, you know, tries to be very green. You know, transportation, the nature of it is to reduce greenhouse emissions. So just having the rail system in place, you know, is big for that. In terms of some of the things that you mentioned, we're going to have the drainage, the piezoelectricity, the extra dynamic braking. I believe the dynamic braking is already happens with the locomotives and the electric equipment. You know, the MTA is piloting a program on Long Island to test battery powered electric trains, which would eventually replace the diesel engines. And that's, you know, admittedly a very long time away. That is something the MTA is testing out. I believe it's the first in North America that any railroads tried this program before. The MTA announced it, I think, about a month or two ago for that. So the MTA, we do look at opportunities for that. In terms of the underdeck lighting, that is city owned by New York City DOT. And it is part of the discussions of, you know, the structure's got to go, the lighting is attached to the structure. You know, what can we put back that is, you know, that the city wants? Is it the same thing? Is it something better? So those discussions that are ongoing.
That intersection, I think, and the relationship between pedestrian flows and curbs is something that I think the community board and boots on the ground would be really interested in advocating for before it's too late, and where there is a juncture between agencies and state and city jurisdiction is often when things get overlooked and big opportunities that can be missed for quality of life on the ground. So if you notice any of those things that seem like they may be an opportunity, please, you know, when they come to the community board, we can make an ask and try to connect those dots where maybe it's not in your purview, it's not in DOT's purview, unless we say, hey, let's get the teams together and figure out how to make sure there's safety underneath these, you know, structures and opportunity for increased public safety through something that may fall through the cracks if we don't ask for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica. We have now Michelle, Diane, and then Angel.
Hi, thank you for your presentation, and I really appreciate that you are here this evening and so early on in the project. I would like to ask a question, or probably more so a statement. I have been to the 125th Street station and seen what it was previously and was joyed to see the changes that have occurred. However, I thought there was going to be more accessible ways to get into the station, as in like elevator works sometimes, doesn't work sometimes. And if you are not able to just really walk around as much as another individual, it is not as accessible as I think it should be. Have there been any steps to take it more accessible to all, that station? I mean, the long stairway up, the short stairway up is still not accessible to all. Another question is that it's going to be taking a long time in order to get this project completed. Is there any way that it could be the transitional portions of it where instead of, okay, we'll have a little bit of a sidewalk, a transitional sidewalk here, we'll have a little transitional overpass here, to make it more of an event where this is happening in your neighborhood. We're making it like semi-permanent structures so that it's pleasant to the eye. It's something that will bring people to the project to want to see what's happening at each increment of that project. Not something that's like pulling back, something that's falling apart, something that's so temporary that it looks like a blight on the neighborhood, but something that is, this is a project that is pleasant and happy, and we are proud of it. And so we have temporary artwork, we have temporary structures that are not falling apart, something like that. Then the other part was, are we going to be having, is this, nope, that's it. Those are my questions.
Hey, thank you for your questions and your time. You know, the first one about the station, Harlem 125th Street, that is, you know, under the ADA guidelines, the American Disabilities Act, that is a fully ADA accessible station. You know, because as I mentioned, it's one of our key stations. And so I'm a little concerned that you're saying that it's not accessible to all, because it meets the requirements under the federal government as far as being an accessible station. And those are guidelines that, you know, the federal government comes out and will inspect our stations to make sure that they meet the requirements under the ADA. So that, you know, that's something that I just want to point out in terms of your concern about it not being accessible to all. And then as far as it, you know, this project is one of our, is the priority project for Metro North. So this is our signature project. So yes, we want to, at the end of the day, we want to be proud of this project and the result, you know, that comes out of this project. Instead of, you know, I guess your point is don't have it just be, you know, just replace what's there, make it better. And, you know, even what Jessica was talking about, make it, you know, transformational. So yeah, we look at that as a, you know, this project being that for Metro North and the MTA, something that we can be proud of, and you know, is very visible, and that, you know, it's something that we will look at, and you know, as we're, you know, getting the input from you and the other stakeholders in the community, we will take that, you know, as we move forward, as we get into the design build, and hire a design build contractor to you know, to really focus on, you know, making this you know, our project that, you know, really stands out. As I said, it's our one major project that we're doing in our capital program here at Metro North.
For that, thank you, Michelle.
I will have to get back to you on that, because I will have to get back to you with this station, because I did not feel that it was accessible. And I really wanted to look, I really wanted to see something that was a little bit different, where the elevator, here's a great sign for the elevator. This is how you would, the signage was not as well, as good as it could be.
Okay, if you want to maybe, you know, send that information through maybe Jose or Angel, and we'll take a look at it, you know, and follow up with you. That, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Diane, then Angel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jose. Thank you to the MTA team. I have several questions. I'm going to keep them brief. And I'm going to speak to you as someone who lives in the area and also has a business in the area of the areas that you are talking about. The first thing when I heard about all of this and I saw all the renderings, just nightmare went in my head. All of the congestion issues that I think that corridor is going to face, all of the noise associated with the construction, way of life being, the people who actually work in that area, their way of life is going to be affected getting to and from work and obviously home. And even though it's very clear that the problem, what you're fixing is the problem of the MTA, my question to you is, as a person who lives in that area and has endured the issues associated with that train passing through, the vibrations of that train on that track, you literally shudder when it passes every time. You can feel it if you're sitting in your car. You can feel it if you're in an apartment, and of course the noise. That's the first thing. So is these improvements going to fix the vibration noises that residents currently are affected by? The second thing I want to add is that because businesses are being affected, and obviously either has to move or something is going to happen to their business, is there any consideration for business interruption funding for this, similar to what you did for the Second Avenue subway? The third thing I want to say is about, and Marissa brought this up about local hiring. I don't know that much about the DC local hiring, but I can say without a doubt, based on my own dealings with MTA, that you've had a less than satisfactory record of local hiring research, local hiring, even in East Harlem. And the final thing, and this is directed to Leslie, I don't know who you spoke to in Harlem, but my concern is, were the people along that Park Avenue corridor reached out to, such as Riverton Tenant Association, NYCHA locations, all of those buildings between 125th and 132nd. The reason why I bring this up is, had someone known about it in the town hall that we have at Adriano, we could have brought that up about the DC hiring issue. So I'm trying to really keep it brief. Those are the few questions I have. I have a lot more, but I realize time is getting late, and I know that we'll get a second chance, but also I want to give you some food for thought, that I am one of the people who is clearly going to be affected. And these are, you may run into similar more me's in the next outreach that you have. That's it. Oh my goodness, did you go silent on me?
I had to switch from the pen to the mouse here. So thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time. The first one was about the vibration and noise. Keep in mind, trains are hundreds of thousands of pounds. So with that, you're not going to be able to eliminate all the noise and all the vibrations that the trains make. There are, with the modern technology and modern materials, there are ways to reduce it. It's not going to be eliminated, but there are ways, and we are looking at ways to reduce it, as much as reasonably as possible. In terms of the business interruption funding, we're not expecting that the construction is going to, prohibit access to the businesses on that. But we're going to, the way we're looking at it is the businesses should be able to still be open, and they can still conduct their normal business as well. You mentioned congestion. We've been meeting with the DOT for over a year now. a year and a half. We've had 2 meetings with the DOT this in the last week alone. We are continuing to work with the DOT to explore, as different ways to limit the congestion and the traffic impacts as much as possible on that. Local hiring, I don't know, Mark, do we have anything more to say on that?
What was that, Mike?
The local hiring question.
All right, that's really not, I mean, that's more the procurement process. I really not, I don't know if Joe has anything to say about that.
Sure. Really what it is it's new legislation or proposed legislation. It's a pilot program that the federal government has floated, which would free up some of those restrictions that we had, historically been encumbered by without being able to geographically restrict the contractor to where they can or can't hire from as part of our bidding process. So we are waiting to hear what that pilot program entails. I'm hopeful that I'm going to have some information. As a matter of fact, Angel and I were talking earlier this month or late last month in May about coming to the economic committee next week, the 16th, I believe it is, 15th or the 16th next week. So I'm hopeful that we'll have some more clarity or at least some more information on the pilot program and whether the MTA is participating or how the MTA would be participating or potentially governed by it. As well as, and I think I've mentioned this before, I think Jessica, we spoke at the SAS phase 2 update to CB11 last month, where we are working with the Building and Construction Trades Council of Greater New York to talk about how we get, in lieu of being able to geographically restrict or dictate to our contractors where they can or can't hire from, how we make marriages between the folks in this community and meaningful life-changing jobs, middle-income jobs, as you mentioned, generational changing opportunities, that we could make those marriages of information, where we put them in touch with the unions and the pipeline, get them in the pipeline, so that they will at some point, hopefully be able to say that they worked on this and other projects were right in their own community and they made a difference in their community. So we're investigating a lot of different ways to either work within the confines that we have presently, or if those confines are relaxed a bit, how we can expand our opportunities as well for the community.
So to your point, Joe, I think, as I said, that it's clearly that you see the issue and you're looking at ways, workaround ways. I'm not clear on the DC hiring thing yet, but like I said,
Diane, I can send you a link. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so this was something that came out of the Biden administration. It was a Trump administration. I think it was a 2017 Trump administration action that geographically restricted federally funded projects from, mandating where federally funded projects can hire from. So there's been a relaxation of that restriction, and there's a pilot program that's being floated right now. And we're trying, our procurement people, as Mark alluded to, are trying to get a better understanding of what that relaxation means and what this pilot program entails, and if it impacts the MTA. So I'm hopeful that I'll have some more information on that in the days and hopefully week ahead.
okay, give me a chance to look at that. Thank you.
Yep.
Diane, you had a question about tenants associations and the NYPD housing. We have not yet specifically spoken with any of the individual buildings or their associations.
Right. And that is a concern because they are directly impacted by what is about to happen now in another year and a half. And obviously, part of your outreach should include that entire corridor.
Agreed.
That's it for me for now.
Thank you, Diane.
Do you have, it would be helpful if we don't have it, I'm just thinking out loud here, if you had the contact for the, the NYPD buildings there.
Oh, she has it. He has a contact for everyone, right, Diane?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
He's asking for the contact for the Rosen, who's running the association and the building association and for the night show. Do you have their contacts?
I can get them in touch with the proper people.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure you can.
And also as many of the people as I can in the portal.
No, I know. Viene nomás a cambiar.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. Angel, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks. So someone else's mic is on. I don't know if they were aware, but their personal conversation was rolling. So just a couple of quick things. So one, I was glad that the under viaduct lighting was brought up before. Like, we see the infrastructure there and the lights have not been on. And frankly, is a question that has been raised many times over the years by the community board, and the responses have, been essentially a hot potato. So we get MTA, DOT, and I'm glad that both of your agencies are represented here, because the infrastructure is there, and as far as the layperson can, understand, it's just a matter of flicking the switch on, because some of them are on and some of them are not. And I recall before, when there was no such infrastructure, and when the infrastructure was put in and things were lit up, it certainly is a vast improvement. And to see that there are still some blocks that for no reason that I can understand are off is perplexing. So that, if either we can work with you all or together, all three of us with the DOT and get those lights on, that'd be great. And it's really, easy thing to do in the short term. And then we'll cross the bridge of what to do once the viaduct is not there, what is being replaced, when that time comes. Can you remind me again, the northern portion that's going to be rehabilitated is from what street to what street?
128.
Not rehabilitated, replaced.
128th to 131st.
Right. So. Okay, so have you all yet been in contact with the Department of Sanitation?
We worked, yes, we worked with the Department of Sanitation a year and a half ago now, when we did the bridge painting at 132nd Street. I'll just note that at 132nd Street, that viaduct was part of the Blue Lift Bridge, and that's from the 1950s. So that bridge is, that section is not part of the project. What we did for that project was we used the two spans there, and the Department of Sanitation moved their trucks to the north of 132nd Street, that the area north there, and we were able to just work around the bridge painting project fairly easily with them.
Okay.
We haven't spoken in detail about this particular project with the Department of Sanitation though.
Okay, and just and this might be an easy answer, but the rehabilitation blocks versus the replacement blocks, while that focused work is being done under either one of those scenarios, is it the expectation that any tenants that are currently underneath the viaduct would have to would have to leave while that work is being done in both the rehabilitation, well, I imagine in the replacement scenario, but also in the rehabilitation scenario, just to be very clear on that?
Yes.
Yeah, so they have to leave. Okay.
Wait. No, wait, hold on. I want to make sure we're clear. Are we talking about the repair work this summer? Is that what you mean, Angel?
No, not the small braces. The
okay, all right.
So you had several sections, some that are full replacement, other ones that are rehabilitation, right?
Yes.
So the rehabilitation blocks would any currently existing tenants underneath the viaduct need to vacate that space while the work's being done?
Yeah, we're talking about the 123rd Street north to 128th Street, which includes the south stairs, Comfort Station, the new plaza. It includes the station house itself. But the other blocks, yes, they would have to. That work is scheduled for after the replacement work, so that 123rd to 128 is a lot longer on the time horizon.
Gotcha. Okay, so rehabilitation after reconstruction.
Correct.
After replacement. Okay. All right, those were my only questions. And then to the point about community engagement, right? So like the way that we understood it is that, this is the first time that we're hearing this at CB11, and we're very thankful for that. And then we go on from here, and then folks start engaging with every single community stakeholder. We'll certainly, can make the connections. Diane can help in some cases, we can help in other cases, and so on. And we're certainly happy that the MTA is open to those conversations. But prior to this, yes, there has been, communication with the Friends of La Marqueta group, which Community Board 11 is certainly represented on. The chair of the board is the chair of the Friends of La Marqueta, and the district manager of CB11, whoever he is, has also been attending those meetings. And we have been reporting back, just for the record, so everyone knows. I know you get a lot of information, but it's it's important to state for the record that that information has been reported back. This particular project, because we were asked to not share it yet, was not shared. But we did want to invite them in because the project time is approaching relatively fast. So here they are, just to be clear on that for the record. And thank you folks for entertaining my questions. That's all I have.
Thank you, Angel. Carly has her actual hand raised.
Yeah, as host, I can't raise my hand. All right, so yeah, I have two related questions. I kind of want to go back to what Diane had raised earlier about the vibration and the noise. I forget if it was Mike or Mark who mentioned that there is modern technology that does reduce noise. I wasn't clear on whether or not the MTA is planning on, I guess, introducing like that technology or installing that technology as part of this plan, or not. So I would like some clarification on that. And then two, just generally during construction as well, does MTA have any plans to mitigate the noise for nearby residents and businesses and organizations? Because as everyone has mentioned, a project of this scale is going to impact a lot of people. And while it's necessary, we also want to ensure that people's qualities of life don't go down. That's my question. Those were my two questions.
Thank you for the questions. Yes, we're looking at incorporating modern technology with that. The first thing that comes to mind is just the rail fasteners and how they, the rail pads and how they sit on the structure itself. The ones that are up there are 30-something years old. They would be fully replaced with new ones that, hopefully soften those vibrations. It's in the best interest of the structure to limit the vibrations. So that's the first aspect. There are various other ways to mitigate, to help potentially reduce the noise, and we're looking at those. And that's something that's going to come up more in the preliminary engineering and then during the design build discussions. But I just like to stress, there's nothing out there that's going to, it's going to stop the noise and stop all the vibrations. That just doesn't exist.
Of course, but just to be clear whether or not that technology was going to be included. As Jessica mentioned earlier, a project this size does introduce opportunity to preemptively, make decisions that might not seem necessary right now, but will benefit residents. And then the second question I had was about noise mitigation during construction. Are there any plans for that?
Yes, specific details, right now this is way too early on to talk about that. Design build, contractors' means and methods, but as part of that, the contractor will be required to follow certain noise levels, in accordance with OSHA and other, local guidelines for that. So the contractor does not get a free pass to do whatever he wants on that. But in terms of specifics, it's too early to talk about exactly specific construction techniques and what the contractor might use.
Okay, thank you so much. And I imagine in good discussions with stakeholders, we'll be sure to follow up.
Yeah, thank you for your questions.
Let me see if we have any more questions. I have a few questions. Angel, you still have your hand up from before, or you have another question?
Sorry, that's one before. I'll lower it now.
All right, thank you. Okay, I had a few questions. Angel hit one of them, which was lighting. It's been a huge issue for us. We had a murder that occurred near Carver, and someone from Carver built houses actually told us if the lights were working, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Something that we're going to follow up and continuously look into. So we hope with these, with all this construction, that all the lighting that should go underneath is properly working, not just installed. Since we actually haven't participated, but I know La Marqueta has been involved. I was just curious. So, is La Marqueta going to close for a certain amount of time, or how's that going to happen?
So the supermarket between 113 and 115, are you talking about?
Yeah.
So our construction is going to start just north of there, just north of 115th Street. That is based off of the structure need between 115 and 116. There's the hill there, so that the structure is different. So access to La Marqueta will be available at all times, and that south sidewalk, that the entrance to La Marqueta will be available.
Okay, perfect. Will there be traffic closures on Park Avenue? Will we know ahead of time when these traffic closures will be?
Yeah, we're anticipating traffic closures. Exact details. We're working out with DOT a whole bunch of different scenarios. As I mentioned, we had 2 meetings in the last week alone with DOT, and that's something that we're going to develop basic parameters with the DOT with, and then during the design build process in a year from now, discuss with the contractors on, again, what their impact is to the tenants, what their impact is to the traffic, what's their impact to the railroad, and kind of weigh all those things together.
All right, good to know. And you said you're planning on not having any service interruptions for the Metro North?
We didn't talk about the service interruptions, but our base case is Metro North has 4 tracks that go into an Grand Central. On the weekends, they run on 2 tracks because it's about 350 trains versus 750 for the weekday. So one scenario is that they can work on the weekends to replace the structure. We are in discussions with Metro North on having an extended outages, maybe on a Friday or longer days. So it's potentially reduce or elongated service. But if there's a benefit to the contractor, we're going to weigh that as well. Just like we're going to weigh that the street closures and the tenant impacts, we're going to see what the design build contractors, what's the best solution and how quickly can they get it done.
All right, thank you. I'm sure we're all excited about this project. It's something that goes down the heart of East Harlem, the viaduct, and affects all of us that cross through. Obviously, public safety is really important, and for transportation, it's just a huge importance there. So let me see if we have any other questions.
We have 2 questions in the attendee section.
All right, let's bring them up one at a time. Carly?
Ivy first, and then Emily.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. And it's really interesting to see that this work is getting done. I have a number of comments. I'm kind of commenting as a member of the community, someone who lives right next to this thing, and an architect and designer, and member of the community board on other committees. I think one thing that I found really actually disappointing about the presentation is that, despite the breadth and the intensity and sort of magnitude of this project, there seems to be a lack of understanding of how the built environment really affects everyday lives in the neighborhood. And I think there's been a lot of all the comments from the committee have highlighted this in a lot of different ways, both during construction, but also really after construction. If we think about this viaduct historically, it was you know, look at Park Avenue. We had the trains underground where the rich people lived, and we planted beautiful flower beds, and everything was designed to look a certain way. And then we come out of the ground on 96th Street and we build this huge viaduct that really divides the neighborhood and splits it in two. And it's really akin to what Robert Moses did in his approach to building highways and infrastructure throughout Manhattan. So we fast forward to today. I think the personal experience walking on the ground at these viaducts is unsafe. It's scary at night. I can't imagine, I'm as a woman who lives in the neighborhood, I personally tend to run when I go through these things because I'm terrified of rats and they're always around and the lighting is awful. And not only are the light fixtures few, but they are also the cheapest, worst quality light fixtures you could possibly specify for any project. I think that who really should have been presenting this is an urban designer or an architect or someone who is showing us a vision for what this means for our community. And it's really disappointing that we're here looking at brackets holding up a bridge and everything is reduced to, oh, we're doing what we can so that this isn't safe. So basically we're holding ourselves to a standard where we want safety only, and we're not considering that this is a huge built object in our neighborhood that defines its character in a lot of ways. And I wish that we would have the city come to us with a presentation that treated this with as much care and consideration as all of the members of this community board are kind of responding and considering how it affects our neighborhood. I appreciate that you have outreach programs and that you have you're trying to get stakeholders involved. I really frankly think that waiting for construction to determine things like details is way too late. If you don't bring in landscapers, maybe you could have flower beds off the side of this thing. Maybe you could have benches. Maybe you could make something that actually makes this a wonderful place for the neighborhood. And it sounds like you're not doing that. And you're coming to us before a design build phase, and really the scope of the project is limited to new concrete piers. And it's just super disappointing. And I think it's really just kind of reinforces this approach that the city's had over the last hundreds of years, where you come to a neighborhood that's lower income and you only do the bare minimum. And I think that going back to what I think it was Michelle commenting earlier that she wasn't able to see the ADA accessibility in the station. I think that just kind of hammers it home. Additionally, we shouldn't to treat accessibility like an afterthought and something that someone in a wheelchair or on crutches has to walk into the station and search for with great effort is not really being honest about how important the needs of accessible people are. And I think that we need to have more concerted effort to design signage and thoughtful built things in our environment that treat our community the way it deserves. I also think the scope of the project is not wide enough. I think that the viaduct is awful between 103rd Street up to 116th Street, and ignoring those portions of the viaduct and leaving them as is a mistake.
Thank you for your comments on that. I'd just like to note, New York State through the MTA, which we're representing, owns the viaduct. New York City owns the land below the viaduct. They own the streets. New York City owns the street lighting underneath the viaduct and adjacent to the viaduct. And as I said, we are working with New York City DOT with discussions if they want something different and if we can incorporate that within our project. But the MTA owns the viaduct itself, and we don't own the land below. We don't own the land adjacent.
Point of clarification, Mike, if I may. The rock that I was talking about from where it services at 97th Street to about 110th, 111th, that is MTA?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add, and I appreciate, Avi, your comments. They're thoughtful and insightful. And, I think it's important to, at this point, nothing's been determined yet. We are here to listen, to take the feedback, the input that we get, to help, develop our plan going forward. So it's not, that we've determined what we're going to do there, and that, there is a lot of time and effort that still is going to take place over the next months, as we get into preliminary engineering and design build. And, the input that we're getting from you and from other stakeholders, that will factor into the plan that, gets developed, because it's going to be a plan, that is going to include, what we're hearing from the community. So thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you for your comments. And design build, we're required by New York State law to use design build as part of the design build process. Some details can't be decided till later on. But in terms of these discussions, they're helpful for us to craft those specifications in a way that helps. For your comments.
Thank you, Ivy. We had one more, Carly. Look up. We have Emily Johnson.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I happen to live in Carver houses. We had 2 murders where the lighting was bad. Up on 103rd Street, dark. 106th Street, so lights off and on. 110th Street, lights off and on. 116th Street has gotten better. Their lighting has gotten better. On the way to 125th Street, the lighting has gotten better. One of my questions is, when you're doing the reconstruction and things of that nature, are y'all also making sure that the foundation is still solid?
The foundation of the existing bridge structure? Yes.
Okay. My second question is, during this time, and I happen to be on the side where the train has been rocking me since 1970. Let's go there. Okay, the noise reduction. Are you gonna also enlighten the residents of each development in the area that you're doing at that time? You're gonna inform them beforehand that this is actually going to happen?
Yes, we would inform, the community on the work and the schedule as we get that, developed later on down the road. I do want to get back to one point you mentioned about the lighting. When we talk about the lighting, Metro North, and this is as far as, my understanding for the years I've been at Metro North, we have lighting around the station at 125th Street under the viaduct. And I mentioned that before, that we improved the lighting under there around the station. But beyond the station, the rest of the lighting under the viaduct is under the New York City Department of DOT. So that, I know their DOT was on the, earlier in the meeting. I don't know if they still are, but those are issues that really we need to talk to DOT about, as far as the lighting. But we are, we added lighting around this train station at 125th Street. So I just wanted to make that point. But, as far as the community and keeping the community informed, yes, that is our plan going forward. And we'd be more than happy to come back to the, to this committee as well, and on the part of the Community Board 11.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Carly, do we have any more questions?
Nope, that's it.
All right, perfect. All right, we appreciate you all coming out tonight and informing us of this big project that's coming up in our neighborhood. Obviously, it has its advantages, but you know there will be certain situations that will adversely affect the community. But you know, as always, as Jessica said, infrastructure is life. So we look forward to continuously working with you. I know that between MTA and the city, you kind of like push the lighting situation to each other, but our community is just know that that is something major for us. And I don't know who's responsible, but I hope that both parties being here will be able to make sure that those lights are working. As you heard from Emily from Carver, there was 2 murders that happened, and a lot of people from Carver have stated directly, Nina Saxon being one of them, who worked with the controller's office, that had that lighting been available, it could have been a different scenario.
Jose, may I ask a point of clarification on that front? Sorry.
Which front?
The lighting, specifically electrical conduit. I understand the electrical conduit provides the electricity to get to light. Who owns the electrical conduit? Is that city DOT, or it runs along MTA's structure in some cases? I'm just trying to separate one from the other. Fasteners, where do you draw the line?
The MTA owns the structures, the steel I-beams. The electricity that powers the trains is separate than the street lighting. The street lighting comes from the local grid there.
Okay, so you maintain separate electrical functions?
Yes.
At all times. Okay, good to know. Sorry to interrupt, Jose.
No, that was a great question.
I interrupted the point at which you were drawing the connection between lighting and people losing their life, which is something that happens too often. So that's why we want to know where to draw the line.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you all for the presentation. We look forward to continuously speaking with each other. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you all. Pleasure being here tonight. We look forward to talk with you in the future.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we're going to move on to old business. Thank you all for still being here. It's 9 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock at night. So we're going to go through our old business. And here we are, our outreach effort. We have our survey follow-up, which we're excited to push through in the summer. I think that's something that I hope all of you will be engaged with, helping us to push this along and adapting it, right? If we can always change things as we see that there's an issue. I don't want anyone to think that everything's set in stone. Jessica, do you have any comments on the survey or anything you want to mention?
Thanks, Jose. I do have one thing. I did go in and make some adjustments based on the feedback that we all worked up last time we met, and a couple of additional adjustments that I think will support us being able to take stronger action on the feedback we'll receive. Carly brought up a really important point, and that's coordination with the Statement of Districts Needs Survey. I think part of the intention here is to get more information from boots on the ground, our neighbors, community members, eyes on the street, everyone who's out there, who has incredible knowledge and feelings of safety or not being safe. But having 2 surveys out there at one time is confusing. And so I'm wondering, this question about survey strategy is, do we wait? Do we kind of Carly, I don't know if you can help us better understand what the time frame for the Statement of District Needs survey is, and if we would be stepping on toes by also having our survey circulating at the same time. I just want to, you mentioned it, and I think it wasn't on my radar, but I think we do want to make sure that we don't steal any fire and that we wait till we're going to get a robust response as much as possible, so this can be, useful.
Yeah, so the Statement of District Needs survey is going to be released this month. We have our District Needs and Budget Committee coming up on Thursday, and that's where we're going to be talking about our work plan for the coming year. And, once that's done, we're going to release a survey. The plan is to keep the survey open until mid-August so that we have time to review and analyze all of the data and feedback we receive. It's a more open-ended survey, so the nature of going through the data, and the nature of qualitative data, it requires a little bit more legwork. So that'll take some time, but just to briefly answer your question, opening in June, ending mid-August, I appreciate your mention of this survey because, I'm less concerned about stepping on toes, more concerned about wearing out the people that we're asking to fill out the survey. Participation fatigue is real, especially when we're soliciting their feedback. And of course, it's for the betterment of East Harlem, but the changes are an immediate, and to some, it might seem like they're filling out these surveys and for what, It's really, at this point, more for our benefit in the short term than it is for theirs in the short term. So that's something I think about, but, don't let that stop you.
No, I think it has to be, we have to coordinate and work together. I think I guess the question that I'm asking is, does it make sense to wait and put our survey out in October, in the fall, after the Statement of District Needs survey has happened and we have material to work with? Well, there will be, and we have plenty to respond to with what Ms. Johnson brought tonight. We've heard that before. I think we can push forward, and then, because you're right, that participation fatigue is real. And the last thing I would want would be for anyone to say, no, I already did the survey. And then having some confusion about who's asking for what. So I don't want to double dip when you're totally right that a little bit of time to make the outreach at the right time. There's nothing that says we have to do this now. I think we got behind a month or two.
Jessica, I think, what would be, I think we should bring this up in executive. And since,
Sure.
I think that's a good place for it. We'll have the chair, vice chair, we'll have district needs, like everyone will be there. And I totally agree with you. We're flexible, honestly, right? We're not on the time crunch the way that that they have a time limit. So if we do it September, it wouldn't make much of a difference. But I think that's a good place to have the conversation, because maybe they say it affects them, maybe they say it doesn't, so that we can kind of bring it up there. What do you think?
I think that's a great solution, Jose. I guess I just wanted to, where everybody on the committee contributed in some way, both last month and then in previous months, by offering questions and things, that if it just, I don't want it to sort of just go dormant without some explanation. So it seems to make sense to sort of delay releasing it, come up with a strong strategy, which we had talked about before, and make sure that the Statement of District Needs outreach that Carly referenced gets its priority and attention as needed to meet the schedule it has to meet.
Absolutely. So that would be our strategy with that. I obviously, in terms of other old business, it's not much to discuss tonight, but I do want to work in the summer for something to do with our e-bike issue that we've been having and what to do with it and how to move forward in September. I recently saw on 2nd Ave and 117 corner, what is that? Northeast corner. There's a big e-bike sale retail place there. It recently opened. They're doing repairs, which means we'll have even more in the neighborhood. And I think as of public safety, I think this is definitely something that we should look to lead to in the city, because the city is kind of being passive as well as the state in regards to this scenario. And with that, anyone else have anything else that they want to bring up, speak about?
Announcements is different than new business, correct, Jose?
I'm sorry? Announcement? Oh, new business, we can, I think we're done with new business. So if you want to have an announcement, we're doing announcements in the beginning and at the end now, because we were so used to doing it at the end, but there are new kind of matrices in the beginning. So if you have an announcement, please go ahead. You're muted, by the way.
I do have an announcement. Just give me one shake of a lamb's tail to pull it up. I wasn't sure, sorry, where it was.
And while Jessica's looking for that, does anyone else have an announcement? I'm jealous. Carlos Diaz has a better tan than me. Shit, that's not right. It's not right.
Okay, so on Thursday, if anybody is up for it, there is a discussion called Safe and Equitable Streets, Age, Ability, and Inclusion that I was a part of putting together with some folks from the New York City Transit Authority, folks talking about universal design. Michelle, this might be of interest, to you, in addition to someone from the San Francisco Municipal Transit Agency. I'll put a link in the chat, and if you're interested in attending and don't want to support the general public fee, just please send me a note and we can see about getting you there.
Could you email us better, Jessica? Or do both, because sometimes when we're done with the chat, like the link kind of, in an email, I can just kind of click on it.
Sure. Can I have a screen sharing permission for a second?
Sure.
You should be able to share now.
Thank you. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. And I know that these are some issues that we talk about a lot. And I think if it's something that you all are interested in attending or able to attend, I would really be super interested to hear your thoughts afterwards. And if there's anything that we can then work to advocate for here with our senior population and those who don't get around or aren't as able as others. So how best to circulate this, Jose? You said send you all an email. Is that right?
I think so. I think it'll be easier for people to click the link on the email at any given point, so it takes them directly there.
There's a link in the chat. I see Emily. I'm not sure that I would be able to email you because you're not on the committee, but maybe you can reach out to Carly and she can forward you the invitation. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you, Jessica. Anyone else? Any announcements? Carlos,
Yeah,
you have your hand up?
I do. As you know, 2 years ago, we committee voted to name a street after Pete Velez, was a stickball player. We couldn't do it last year. So we're gonna be hosting it this year, June 19th at 115th Street in Park Avenue. So you're all welcome to attend. the city councilwoman is gonna unveil the street naming, so please, if you can attend, that'd be great. I know you guys
What day
are very
was it again,
supportive.
Carlos?
June 19th,
June 19th.
Saturday, June 19th.
Perfect.
And 115 on Park Avenue. The family's coming all the way from Florida and Puerto Rico to be a part of this, and I know you guys are very instrumental in making this happen. So we extended the invitation to you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I think
Anyone
it
else?
was in the newsletter too. It was circulated in our newsletter.
Oh, okay, great.
Carlos, yeah, it looks good. Thank you.
All right, it seems we're done with announcements. And with that, we are going to do a roll call and adjourn.
Okay. Altamirano,
Present.
Brown is excused. Collier,
Diane, I'm here.
Diaz,
Present.
Cabrero,
Here.
Garcia, Mack,
Here.
Morris,
I'm here.
Sanders, and Wiltshire Clement.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you all for doing the work of the community board. I appreciate you staying here with us this hour of the night. Enjoy your summer. Please reach out if you see anything. We're still going to look forward. Even if we don't release the survey now, it still gives us the ability to keep working on it. So I look forward to hearing from all of you during the summer if you're not away. And I see Xavier has joined us the whole meeting. Thanks, Xavier.
Thanks, Jose, and everyone. You're doing an awesome job. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night. Have a great summer, everyone.
Same here, ladies and gents. Bye now.